Let's bring in NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley in Tel Aviv for us, an independent journalist, Noga Tarnopolsky, who has had 2 decades of experience covering the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Great to have you both here. Matt, any signs these protests and pressure on Netanyahu are having an impact on potential ceasefire talks?
No, not really. And, this is a situation where we're about to see the United States supposedly before the end of the week, proposing some sort of a last-ditch effort to try to get some sort of hostage deal. Now, we've heard this language from the White House before. I think this time it was something like make it or break it or last ditch. We've also heard from the White House many times that they were close to a deal. And every single time, there must have been 3 or 4 different occasions when we've heard from the Biden administration that they were close to a deal. And those hopes have always been crushed within days or weeks of those announcements. So we haven't heard that there's going to be any movement from the Israeli side. Benjamin Netanyahu spoke just a couple of days ago, addressing the country, and said that he wasn't going to be moving on the one issue that a lot of people are crediting with holding up these talks, and that is the continued Israeli troop presence on what's called the Philadelphia Corridor, which is just another name for the border between between Gaza and Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. They also want to maintain troops at a roadway that was created by the Israelis in just the last year during the combat, called the Netzarim Corridor, that bisects Gaza from north to south. This seems like it is going to be a part of Netanyahu's negotiations from here on out, and it has been really for the last month. A lot of folks have been accusing the prime minister of tacking this on to his demands rather late in the game as a deliberate measure to obstruct these negotiations. And so that's why we're seeing so much anger. A lot of the anger also coming from the notion that these 6 young people who were killed in the Gaza Strip just over the weekend, that they might have been part of some negotiated hostage deal, that their names or that their identities were somehow part of some sort of deal that would have seen some measure of peace in the Gaza Strip and would have seen a lot of these hostages freed. So knowing all of this idea that Netanyahu is continuing to pursue a military solution to releasing the hostages, a lot of these protesters are saying that has been illegitimate for the past several months, and that this vindicates that, the death of these 6 hostages, that their statements and these protests, they're not new, that they have always been saying that there needs to be some sort of deal. They have the numbers on their side. Only a handful of hostages have actually been released through military means. More than 100 of them were released during the last successful hostage negotiation all the way back in November. Yeah. So that's one of the sources of the anger that you're seeing on the streets of Israel.
Matt Bradley, thank you. So, Noga, publicly, Netanyahu has remained defiant. We'll be listening very closely to see if his posture's changed at all in this upcoming news conference. But here's a glimpse of the opposing political forces he's dealing with. Overnight on social media, Israel's National Security Minister, Ben Gvir, writing that he's working to stop negotiations with Hamas, saying Israel should not negotiate with murderers. And then there's former war cabinet leader and opposition leader Benny Gantz arguing that Netanyahu needs to bend, saying, quote, the hostages must be returned even at a very heavy price. What force has more pull right now, do you think?
It depends on what we mean by pull, because despite what Netanyahu and his associates have been saying all day long, a majority of Israelis, a clear majority of Israelis and sustained majority of Israelis want there to be a ceasefire and the hostages released. That is the #1 priority for the majority of Israeli citizens. The government, however, seems to have even stiffened its back over the past few days and is responding to this massive presence of Israelis on the street. It's the equivalent, Saturday night here was the equivalent of 15 million Americans taking to the streets. They've responded to that by saying, we're doubling down. Absolutely, we are not going to do anything except for fight to get these hostages back. And fighting hasn't really brought any hostages back, or very few. And that is the standoff that you're seeing right now in Israeli hearts and on Israeli streets.
Noga, the U.S. just charged Hamas leaders with terrorism over the October 7th attack. And so does that charge against Hamas change anything on the ground, or is it more symbolic?
I don't think it's symbolic. I think it's serious. especially when we take into account that American citizens have also been killed. I do think that it's complex. In Israel, it has brought up the question, why haven't Israeli authorities charged these Hamas leaders with crimes, which could provide kind of some more ballast, judicial ballast here? I think it also raises a very uncomfortable question. Given President Biden saying in recent days that no, Netanyahu is not doing enough to free the hostages, given the fact that there's still American citizens there, I think it raises questions about just how difficult these conversations are when Americans tell Netanyahu behind the scenes, you have to be doing everything to save American lives, not just Israeli lives, and we're pursuing the way these people are being murdered and how you're responding. So I think that this has to do a little bit with discussions behind the scenes.
Noga Tarnopolsky, thanks very much for all of that.